everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to my home. On today's video, I am going to be taking you along on my evening reset and showing you how my week works depending on the day. Today's Monday, so I'm only going to show you what I do on Mondays. Mondays for me is bedroom days, and I clean my home by zones, by day, and I also include my laundry by days.
So the first thing that I do is I start putting everything back where it belongs. This is bedroom day, so I'm going to tackle all of the bedrooms. And I'm not doing a deep cleaning, but I am definitely putting things back where they belong. Now, when it comes to the bedrooms, I do like to dust because we are in the middle of construction. There is so much dust coming into the house, and we are struggling with our allergies. So, a good vacuuming and a good dusting is definitely a must. Now, on Instagram, a lot of you guys ask me how often I vacuum because I clean in zones, meaning that I don't touch every room of the house every single day when I clean. And so there was concern about how often I vacuum, but I would like to recommend a smart vacuum. This is one of the ones that I've tried, but I've tried so many of them. And honestly, just one that will get the work done for you is amazing. I tend to vacuum twice a week, sometimes three if it's really, really bad. As I said, we live in the middle of construction, so there's always dust and dirt coming in. We are a no shoe policy in this house, and even then, there's still tons of dirt coming in. So I try to get to that as much as possible. But having that smart vacuum, honestly, is a game changer. And I just set it and I forget about it until it's done. So I can dust, I can get everything done without having to worry about the actual vacuuming part. So, minor recommendation there if you are trying to cut time in your cleaning or you just don't have that time available to you. Now, over on Instagram, I also get asked all the time if I take care of the dishes or if I do certain tasks only on sound days. And I wanted to touch base on that a little bit because there is at least three non-negotiables for the day that I make sure I do daily. One of them is going to be taking out the trash. The second one is going to be making sure the sink is empty and the dishes are clean or at least in the dishwasher running. And the third one is if there is a little incident near the toilet, that those get wiped down. There was a little bit of confusion on a recent post I made about how I clean the toilets every day. And I think a lot of people thought that I was deep cleaning my toilets every day, but that's not the case whatsoever. I give them a quick wipe down because I have boys in this house that are still learning about cleaning after themselves. They're fairly young, 4 and 7, and it's still a process. There's going to be accidents sometimes. And because they do use their hands to lift the lids of those toilets, I get very icky about them touching it and then not knowing if they've properly washed their hands afterwards. So, as a mom, that's just one of those things that I've grown used to doing. I don't mind it. It takes less than 5 minutes. Unfortunately, a lot of people on Instagram took that as a completely different sign. And I always say to each their own, everyone can build their own non negotiables. I was just simply sharing mine. If you feel like your non negotiables are going to be the dishes and the trash only, that's perfectly fine. If you feel like the counters in the kitchen is part of the non negotiables, that's totally fine too. All I need you to kind of process is that you can have a max of 4 non-negotiables because then you're adding a full cleaning routine to your day. And that's not doable if you're working, if you have things to do, if it's really the end of the day. So keep that in mind when you're thinking of those. I often get asked why I chose to clean in sounds, and to be honest with you, it can be very overwhelming to tackle an entire house on the daily. It can be overwhelming if you're working 9 to 5. It can be overwhelming if you're taking care of a family member. It can be overwhelming as a mother. And there is just so much to do, and there's not enough time. if I'm being honest. And I started doing this roughly 3 years ago when I truly sat down with myself and kind of created a checkoff list. What are the main things that each room requires to get done? Can I do it in 20 minutes? And if it's not incredibly dirty, can it go a couple days without it being touched? And honestly, at the end of that analysis, personal analysis, I found that bathrooms and kitchens were the most soiled, dirty, and needed more attention, whereas bedrooms and maybe living rooms were not. So if I started those at the beginning of the week, then I can get to the really dirty sections of the house and maybe give them an extra day so that I was constantly on top of those heavily trafficked areas. What I also learned is that I needed to diminish and make my threshold more doable. You might have heard me say this before, but every zone in your house needs to meet a threshold. It means that if you are too overwhelmed, there's probably too much going on there. In each room, with some exceptions, I make sure that I can clean it in under 10 minutes. I'm not saying deep cleaning, I'm just saying a quick wipe down and a vacuuming. If I can't do that in that timeline, threshold has been overflown and things need to be decluttered. So I make sure every zone is doable. And if I feel like it's been too much, then I reassess everything and I try to replan it in a way that is more doable for my family and myself. A lot of times people think that if I pick up my kids' rooms that they must not be cleaning or picking up. But that's simply not true. I like to do the resets, and as you can see, these rooms are not necessarily messy. I wouldn't consider this messy. They have their stuff back to where it should be, but there are times where, yes, because they're doing schoolwork, because they're taking care of other stuff, the dusting doesn't get done. I don't expect my 4-year-old and my 7-year-old to be dusting all the time. One of them has asthma, and I definitely don't want him to be overly exposed to that. But it's just, there's some task that as a mom, I'm going to keep taking care of until they are old enough to do it. Now, I do encourage them to see how I take care of things. I show them, I remind them, and they do have their own chores, but I'm not heavily focused on the perfection behind the cleaning. I am more focused on teaching them why it's important and a necessary skill. To me, as a parent, I feel like teaching a child to maintain their zone and their area manageable and clean is, quite frankly, a skill necessary to survive as a grown up. I wasn't necessarily taught how to clean. My mother kind of just expected me to know, and I don't blame her because I don't think she was taught how to clean. She just kind of was expected to. And that's kind of what the cycle was up until now. I am very purposeful of showing my children that certain things require certain cleaners, whether or not I feel comfortable with them being around those cleaners, if they can be toxic, so on and so forth. There's a whole mechanism behind teaching kids how to clean properly. But the main thing that I can recommend, and I recommend to most people that ask me this, is be patient and set them up for success. Make sure they know what the expectations are and don't have this overly perfect idea of how their cleaning should be done. Now, as of recently, I've included this section of the house on bedroom day because I like to take care of one load of laundry each day. If I'm able to do more than one, by all means, I will tackle it, but it's never perfect. So I am now including the laundry room in my bedroom day because what I do when I wash, because I have this little table section behind here, is I will wash, dry, and dump everything in this table here. And then I'll come in and fold it on my reset time. because during the day I am usually homeschooling and working on my own job. And so it can be a little overwhelming to fold everything, but I can at least start washing, drying, and usually towels and bedding. I'm not concerned about getting wrinkles. If it's our actual clothes, what I do is I lay them flat in the bed if they are t shirts or just things that I don't want them to get wrinkled. I don't iron my clothes. I purposely buy things that don't need to be ironed because again, as somebody with ADHD, I cannot keep adding tasks to everything that I do. So, I think overall, if I ever needed something genuinely dried, there's a setting on my dryer that will steam dry it, and I that's just how I deal with it. But I don't necessarily do those extra tasks. So, this will be done on Mondays from now on. I do a quick pickup, I fold the laundry, I put it away, and then I make sure that my cleaners are back to where they belong so they're not hanging around areas where they're not supposed to. And this is what I consider my zone cleaning. It's not deep cleaning, it's not decluttering. If there are messes that definitely needed to be deep cleaned, I'll take care of it. But I usually have only 20 minutes before it's bedtime, and I like to tackle it the most efficiently possible. Again, it's important to keep in mind the more items you have, the more you're going to add time to that cleaning. A lot of people tell me that 20 minutes just isn't doable. And I think it's probably because you're including decluttering and deep cleaning in these tasks, but also because you have a lot in those areas. Try to simplify by decluttering and time yourself every time you clean. This should be able to help you set your threshold. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and until next time, bye.